Okay, we'll go ahead and get started tonight. Denton Wainwright is going to be monitoring our participants and trying to let people in if they join us. We have a good bit of people still joining in, but we are going to go ahead and get started. On behalf of the Board of Education and the staff of the Taylor County School System, I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight on this Zoom session. It is our second Zoom session. I want to apologize for last week because we didn't realize we had a limit on the number of participants on our Zoom account, but we have thought that we fixed that problem, and I think we have, because currently we're at 137. So we should be able to host anybody that wants to join tonight, but also we're going to be recording the event tonight too, so that we can post it again for those that miss it. And I originally was going to start by answering some of the questions that resulted from last week, but because we're going to record it and some people haven't heard it, I'm going to kind of go through everything. So for those of you who were joined us last week, please bear with us as we go through kind of a general overview. But the first thing I want to say is we certainly understand you have a lot of questions and concerns as we get ready to start the school year. I want to remind you, of course, that we all know since March that the information we have on this virus is constantly changing. And so I want to commit to you that we do have backup plans, that the plans that I'm sharing with you tonight are just that, they're plans, and we're constantly monitoring the CDC recommendations. We also, or as we make plans, we are talking with the Department of Community Health. Our area supervisor has been on the phone with me, and also our local health officials. So as we monitor the Centers of Disease Control, as we monitor that CDC, I want you to know too that we're also looking at Taylor County. We are concerned about what's going on in our community because that is the most important information. So as things change, even in our community, we may need to change our plan. So want to assure you of that and assure you that as our plans change, we do plan to communicate that to you. But I cannot stress enough our commitment to the health and safety of our students, their families, our employees, and our community. I can promise you that we're going to do everything in our power, and we're going to work hard to keep your students safe and our employees safe. And ultimately, we're certainly concerned about our community as well. We started last week with a survey. I want to thank all of you who participated in the survey. We had Miss Latanja Turner kind of headed up this survey for us, and she has a parental involvement team. And so 524 people responded to our survey. I don't have the PowerPoint that I shared last week with me, but the main stat that I want to give you from that survey is the one about if you are considering a preference for the upcoming school year for teaching your child, what would best suit your need? And out of that 524 responses, 44.5% said send my child to school. 17% said they wanted full-time distance learning at home. 28.1% wanted some kind of blended learning, which would include traditional and distance learning. And then 10.5% said, I have not decided. So we appreciate your participation in that survey. And we have reviewed those results, and continuing, the schools have some specific results that they're looking at. So we're continuing to utilize that, and thank you for participating in it. I will also tell you that we have a chat that we're going to utilize tonight. We did it last week too. And I want to assure you that part of this process is we want to hear from you. And we want to hear from our parents because we want you we want your input, and we're going to take that into account. So at the end of, when I'm going to go through some of the things that we're planning to do, and I will take questions. I'm going to take the first part to clear up some things that came up last week, and I have been emailed by a couple of you during the week, and I want to share some of that information as well. But I want to start tonight by saying that we do plan to start August 3rd. That's what's the student start date on our calendar, and we're hopeful to be able to do that. We know that things in our community could change, and that we may have to make some adjustments to that, but we are moving forward with starting on August 3rd. And as we start school, we're going to give our parents and students two choices. You've got a choice of traditional school, which will be in-person instruction, or a full distance learning at home option. Okay, and then knowing that our traditional model, we may have to also shut down at times. So you've got those two options to start with. Now, if you choose to do the full distance learning at home, we're going to have a form on the school website by July 13th. So beginning next Monday, that you're going to notice that we've got some forms for you to complete. It's going to be an enrollment form for full distance learning at home. You do not, if you plan to use traditional school, you do not have to complete the application or the enrollment form. Those forms are going to be due by July 24th. So you should see them on the website starting next week, and they'll be due to us by July 24th. If you do not complete a form, we're going to assume that you want traditional school. Now, one thing I want to point out is that whatever choice you make is going to be in effect for the first semester. And then we'll offer an opportunity to enroll for the second semester. So when you make that choice in the coming weeks, it's going to be for the first semester only, and then we will reach back out and give you a deadline on the second semester. So for those students that choose full distance learning at home option, you'll be utilizing the Odyssey-ware. Now that is a software program some of you may be familiar with because we've used it for credit recovery and various other programs. And this is an online program, and this course will be assigned, the courses that your child takes will be assigned through that program, and the instruction will be delivered through that program. So we'll have one of our staff members to monitor the student's progress. One of the things that came up is, will the students be required to log in at a certain time or a certain amount of time? We are not going to monitor what time of day they are on the computer. What we are going to monitor is their completion percentage. So in other words, if at the end of the first semester, they should be 50% complete with the course. So that's the kind of information. So all along, we'll be verifying that at least your child is making progress, and we would communicate with you if we saw there were problems with that progress. And for the most part, that instruction is going to take place through that platform. All right, if your student is attending traditional school and it becomes necessary for us to close the school, in fact, as I said, August 3rd, if August 3rd comes and we decide it's not safe to come to school, the traditional school students will receive virtual school from our teachers. So the Taylor County School System teachers, all of a sudden we're in school, but we have to go home for some reason because of the virus, then our teachers that work for us will be providing that learning. And I will mention at this time that learning is going to look different than it did in the spring. In the spring, we were getting used to this, and this was new to us, and I am very proud of our staff and the work that they did during that time. But this time, when we start the virtual learning, it's going to be real direct instruction. So I want to assure you, and it will be graded work. So it will look entirely different from what we did in the spring. It will be traditional school, but we may have to do it at a distance. And again, I want to just say that we are going to say that whatever choice is made, that we intend for that to be in effect for the full semester. Now, if your child is coming to traditional school, I want to talk through some of the safety measures that we have. But I want to also let you know, I'm trying to give you a broad overview. I did talk to Miss Valerie Moore. We appreciate her putting the information in the newspaper. I have not read the article yet, but I know that she and I did talk at length, and so I hope she was able to give you in writing a good overview of some of the things we have as plans. But I commit to you, before you have to make a decision, before that July 24th deadline, and probably early next week, we will give you a handout or a flyer with the information that I'm giving you, so that you will have something to refer to, and you're not just basing it on what you remember about me saying. And I will also say that what I'm doing is more of a kind of a general overview of the things we're doing as a district. There will be very specific school information that will be communicated to you from the principal and the school staff. So please stay tuned, and we're going to be very soon providing you a lot of information, and certainly willing for you to contact me, email, phone, contact me with any questions, concerns that you have going forward. All right, the first thing we're going to do, and that's going to be a constant thing, and I think it's encouraged across most school districts, we're going to be constantly reminding students and employees to stay home when they're sick. In fact, we're relaxing the attendance requirements. That does not mean that attendance is not important. I do want you to know that, I mean, we certainly are going to relax it for this COVID-19, but we really believe students need to be in school. And so if at all possible, we want you there. But we also are going to relax those, knowing that we really want people to stay home if they have symptoms of COVID-19, if they've tested positive, or if they've had close contact with a person that's had COVID-19. And we're going to be constantly reminding our students and staff that. They're going to hear this on the announcements. They're going to see this on signs that we have posted throughout the school system, throughout our buildings, in the restrooms. We're going to have signs about washing your hands, signs about symptoms, signs about what to do, signs about social distancing. We're going to have marks on the floor. We're going to have signs throughout the building. I will tell you that we're going to have a location where if we have a student that has become symptomatic, or we become aware of a student in one of our buildings that has symptoms, we are going to have a special isolation room for that student. So that student will be taken to that area, and the parent will be contacted, and we'll begin a screening process then. Now, if we find out later that person has tested positive for COVID-19, then we are going to be able to communicate that now, but we're going to be doing contact tracing. We're going to be contacting the health department. We're going to follow the CDC guidelines, and I can assure you we're going to be in constant touch with the local health officials as that information gets back to us. So we're going to do everything in our power to protect those students that are sick and their identity and not single them out. But at the same time, we know we have an obligation to the rest of you to get that information out to you that your child may have been exposed. And we are going to do the things we can do to limit contact as much as possible. One of the things that we will struggle the most with are the buses. We are going to change some of our bus routes. We're trying to reduce the passengers on our buses, but we will not be able to do that to the extent that we can get social distance on that bus. So because of that, we are planning to require face masks on the bus. Now, I will go ahead and tell you, we're not going to require face mask in our building. We're going to encourage face mask in our school building. So you'll see us encouraging that, but we will not require it. But on that bus, where those students are going to be in close contact, we are going to require that face mask. Now, if we have a student that doesn't want to wear a face mask, we're probably not going to argue with that student at the moment. We're going to have an isolation seat so that that student can be placed on that seat, get them to school, and then we will contact the parents and have a discussion about that requirement for the face mask on the bus. Now, again, we're not trying to punish children by making them wear a face mask. We're not trying to create a bunch of rules for your kids to have to follow. We just are very concerned that the contact on that bus, that they're going to be in very close contact with each other, and think that that would at least be something we can do to help slow the spread. We will also assign seats on the buses, and we'll try to keep family members together. So to the degree we can distance, we will, but it's going to be very difficult to do. We have hand sanitizer that'll be available as the students enter the bus and as they exit the bus. And then those buses are going to be cleaned and disinfected daily. Upon arrival at school, whether you're a car rider or a bus rider, if you've chosen traditional school, you're going to be prompted to go straight to your first period class. If you're a high school student, you're not going to be utilizing the lockers. So we're going to do everything we can to limit any kind of intermingling that takes place in the hallway. So students will be urged to go straight to the first period class. We'll have staff members in the hallways to ensure that that takes place. We'll be serving breakfast in the classroom. The breakfast will be delivered to the classroom, and students will eat in the classroom together. Once we get a classroom together for grades probably K through 7, we're going to do everything we can to keep those group of kids together for the most part during the day. So once we get them to school, we're going to try to minimize the contact with multiple groups. They'll kind of stay with a group. That's not something we can do at the high school level. And that's not something we can do 8th grade with the way their schedule. Their schedule is much more like a high school schedule, but K through 7. Now there is some concern that we do have students K through 2, they're self-contained. So we're pretty confident we can keep those students, once they get in the classroom, we can kind of keep them together. But once we get to 3rd and 4th, they rotate one time. Our teachers and the administrators at the upper elementary school have worked on a plan, and we believe we're going to be able to make that transition by sending those students we can send those students to the gym, to the different connection classes, disinfect those classrooms, and stagger those changes back to class. We'll stagger those changes and then stagger them back to class. We believe we can make that transaction and do it safely without them coming in contact with the other classes. That's what we're going to try to do with 3rd and 4th. I think 5th, if I remember correctly, may have 2 transitions, but we're going to do the same kind of philosophy. If it becomes apparent that we cannot make that transition without and keeping our kids separate, the teachers will move from class to class. But we believe at this point, we can do that without asking the teachers to move. We can move the students. I think in some ways it will help the students to get to move, where they're not in that same class the whole day. High school, there's so many different classes. They go so many different directions with the different CTAE pathways. The same for the 8th grade. They're doing a little different track. And so we're just not going to be able to offer that as much with them. And I may be getting a little off track, but even like with restroom trips, we can keep classes together, we believe, K through 7. We will disinfect those bathrooms. I mean, it will be constant. It will be a continuous, ongoing cycle with disinfecting those classrooms. High school students, it will be a little more difficult with the bathroom, but right now we plan to have a maximum occupancy in those high school restrooms. So, and we do believe our high school students can can follow social distancing better than the younger ones, and we'll be able to turn them loose a little more with that, but also put signs where we're only allowing so many in the restroom at a particular time. So I've gotten a little off track here, but I'm gonna get back on our list. Breakfast will be served in the classroom. Lunch is going to be eaten in the classroom, but we will stagger trips to the cafeteria for them to get their lunch. So they will get to leave the classroom long enough to get their lunch, but that will be staggered, and they'll still eat in their classroom. Now, this is something that we're not that excited about, but I do believe it's something we will initially start the school year with, trying to keep the students so that we'll have an easier time doing the contact tracing. At some point, we may relax some of that, because we do think we can do some amount of social distancing in the lunchroom if we stagger our lunch period. So we may relax that. We will be able to get we will have large trash cans in those rooms and try to get that trash out of the classroom. I know that food, we will try to get the trash out of there as quick as possible. They'll be given an opportunity to eat, and then we'll remove the trash. Let's see, where feasible, rooms are going to be arranged with the students socially distanced, but we may not be able to do that in every classroom. We may not be able to get 6 feet, but we're hoping we can get 4 or 5 feet. So I cannot guarantee you that in every classroom we're going to have the 6 feet between each desk, but we're going to move them out as much as possible. Those desks will all be arranged facing the same direction. We do have some places where we have tables. They will be sitting on the same side of the table, facing the same direction, and we will have them spaced out. We do have some circle tables. They may be a little problematic. We are looking to see if we can replace those with a more rectangular shaped table. but we are going to face everybody in the same direction, space those tables apart, and space the children apart. Those are the guidelines for using tables, is that they would be facing the same direction. So we're going to try to make that happen. Students will be discouraged from sharing books, materials, supplies, or equipment. One thing was mentioned about the media center. We will most likely, we might delay the start of the media center, but as we start that, we certainly are going to keep those books out of circulation. The media center staff will disinfect those books and keep them out of rotation until they've had time to be disinfected, and then they'll be placed back on the shelves. But we're going to discourage, even in the classroom, them sharing. I'm happy to announce, and this is something we had planned even before we knew all of this, is we're going to have a Chromebook for every student, grades 6 through 12. They'll each be assigned their own Chromebook, and they'll be able to take those home with them. And so we also are trying to have enough Chromebooks for the elementary grades as well, because to the degree we can, we don't want them sharing those devices. So we may not have one for every student, but we feel like we'll be pretty close by the time we start school. We will focus on our main priority from my conversations with the health department, or Department of Community Health, is we're going to be focusing on prevention strategies, such as encouraging frequent hand washing, having sanitizer readily available, encouraging face coverings, decreasing intermingling of students, staggering dismissals. That's something I'm sure you'll have some questions on, that we will be able to provide more information real soon, but we are certainly understand that when we turn the students loose at the end of the day, we've got some issues there too. I'd also like to thank the Family Connection group for their donation of hand sanitizer stations, and I want to assure you we're going to have supplies. We have ordered and have in stock a lot of supplies, and we're continuing to stock supplies of certainly disinfectant spray and wipes. And we also have, for those bus riders, I told you that we would require the face mask. We certainly will encourage you to allow your student to bring one from home, but we will have paper masks available. So we have got a bulk supply of the paper face masks that we will be willing to share with students and faculty, and we'll be encouraging that. We're going to limit visitors to the school. So, and that's going to include parents. We know you're going to have to check out your student, and we're not saying we're not going to let you get to your student, but we are going to have to limit the people that we let in our buildings. And that includes any other visitors. There'll be some essential people that come in, sometimes counselors, speech. We have several people with services they're providing our students, but we will screen those individuals that are visitors that are coming into our school. We're certainly going to be cleaning and disinfecting our buildings and surfaces and high-touch objects, and all that will be done. We've been doing it in the past, but I can promise you it will be stepped up, and we'll be doing it frequently and constantly. The water fountains will be closed during this time. So I'm going to take a minute, and I'm going to go back through a few of the things we had left over from last time, and a few of the things that have come up to my attention since the last meeting, and then we're going to start reading through the chat and answering some of the questions in the chat. It may be that I answer some of your questions whenever I go through some of the things that have already come up. So if you'll bear with me just a minute, and I'll probably remember things I forgot to tell you, but as we go through them. The first thing I'll point out is that I just said the water fountains will be closed. One of the questions was, can they bring a water bottle? And so, yes, we are going to allow students to bring water to school. So that they need to bring their own water bottle, and I would recommend it having their name on them and they keeping up with it, you know, all day with the book bag. We are allowing the book bags clear and mesh at the high school, middle school. Middle school, they are going to use their lockers because we believe we can stagger their trip to the middle school lockers. We do not believe we can keep social distance and utilize the high school lockers. So they're going to be allowed to have those book bags with them all day. They will have a Chromebook. I will announce that the high school is going to be selling clear backpacks that will meet our guidelines, and I believe has enough room in them for your books and and a Chromebook that would take care of that Chromebook they're going to be assigned. So they will be selling them in the near future. Look for that. You certainly are welcome to get your own, but we did find some and we think we'll offer them for your students. As part of that discussion, I did have a question about, well, now that high school students are carrying their books all day, no locker, and what about athletic bags and or band, that kind of thing. We will have a location for band equipment and athletic bags. I think they've had places for those in the past and they will continue to do that. I will point out that not all classes have textbooks. Some of them do, some of them do not. Some of those textbooks may be allowed to remain in the room, but you know, and certainly you could, I believe these teachers will work with you as far as notebooks that are required where they can be shared. So we may have a few issues we have to work through, and that I'm just committing to you that our plans are flexible and we can make adjustments as we need to as we run into problems. But that would address one of the, at least some of the questions, I'm sure, with that. I had an email, and let's see. What is the plan once someone tests positive, and will it affect the entire school system or just that school? And once somebody has tested positive, we're going to communicate that, but we're going to do the contact tracing. We're going to contact the health department, and in cooperation with our health department, we'll make those decisions about school closures. And it probably will depend on contact. If we got a car rider that was at the primary school and we were able to, that contact was very limited, like we think it can be at the primary school, then it's likely we could just close one school and not the whole district. But now if it's a bus rider that may have had exposure with multiple schools, then it may infect the entire district. We take this very seriously and your child's safety very seriously. It is our utmost priority every day. We're here to educate your child, but in order to do that, we got to keep them safe. So we're committed to that, and we're committed to following the CDC guidelines. And I promise you, any decision we make will be made in cooperation with our local health officials and the Department of Community Health. For kids who have 504 plans or IEPs, how will those interventions and one-on-one time be administered? And if we have to go back to online instruction, how will that be done? If a student is choosing the online learning, most of our 504 plans are things that involve the child working at their own pace, and that online format is going to allow for them to work at their own pace. So we believe if they're choosing the distance learning, the 504 plan, most of those things are being met. I think there's read aloud options in that format. So I believe most of that's taken place in using that format. If they chose traditional school, we're going to honor that 504 plan. If they chose traditional school and we go to a virtual format, we're going to honor that 504. That's our teachers doing that. But again, most of those things are distraction type things, which become not as much of an issue once that child is learning from home. In terms of IEPs, if we have a student with an IEP, hold on just a second. If we have a student with an IEP, we probably will have to modify the IEP in order to do the full distance learning at home. So I think that will require an IEP team meeting. And so once you complete that enrollment form and let us know that's your intent and your child has an IEP, then I'm sure Ms. Hopkins and the special ed teachers that are involved will contact you about setting up a meeting, and we will certainly make plans to see that your child receives what they need there. And if you're traditional school and the IEP and we have to go virtual, we will have to look at that. Again, it may be something where we have to modify that IEP if we're going to be home a long term, for long periods of time. In other words, if we have to shut down for several weeks, then it may be we need to look at that IEP. But those special ed teachers will be working with your student too. As they work with their regular classroom teacher, they'll also be working with you to try to support your student. It says for high school students, how will classes for their pathways be taught? I know some may have access to the equipment needed. How will it affect their graduation requirements? For those of you who are about to, if you're going to choose the full distance learning at home option, we're going to provide you next week, along with that form, along with the enrollment form. I want you to look for information from each school about what your child's schedule would look like if you chose that option. And one of the things the high school is going to have to provide you is a list of electives that OdysseyWare has available. So in other words, OdysseyWare's got a lot of electives on their system. And your child, if you're doing full distance learning at home, then your child's got to pick some. And we're going to, if you're doing full distance learning with us, when your child's schedule is set, we're going to make sure a 9th grade student has the correct number of hours they need to be on track to graduate, but that will include some electives. I will say that if your student chooses to learn at home the first semester, and then they want to come back the second semester, which they can do, I cannot promise you we can put them in the pathway they might. In other words, the schedule is going to may be problematic as we bring them back in. We certainly can get them in their core content classes, but we may have to allow them to continue to do electives on the OdysseyWare format. If we can make it work in their schedule, we certainly will, but I couldn't promise you. Let's just say somebody wanted to take automotive. They had done the homeschool thing the first semester. They wanted to come in second semester and go into automotive. If we can make that happen, we will, but I can't promise you we can make that happen. So we will allow people to come back if they don't like that after the first semester, but can't promise you about some of those electives. All right, let's see. I think this next question is saying that if you're doing the at-home learning and you got somebody that's doing traditional learning, when we have to shut down, I want to make sure you know if we shut down and we're not doing any traditional learning, then our teachers are providing that instruction for those that chose traditional school. If you chose the at-home learning, then you're using OdysseyWare the whole first semester. But you won't get, if we have to shut down the school, we won't transition you to OdysseyWare. Our teachers will provide that instruction. And the other question, I think, again, is dealing with somebody who's probably got a 504 or having a hard time. It says, if we go back to online instruction, what about kids who have a hard time working on their own? And we do know, and one of those survey questions talked about that, and that was one of the things that people selected. My child has a hard time working on their own. But I will tell you that if you choose the full distance learning at home, parents are taking on a responsibility. I mean, we're going to try to take care of your child best we can, but a parent is assuming a lot of responsibility there, because most of those 504 issues that we may deal with at school kind of go away with that home environment. And we will try to notify you if your child's not working, if we can tell they're not making, and by that I don't mean they have to be on the computer at 8 o'clock in the morning. They can do it at 5 o'clock at night if you want them to. But what we will be looking at is, did they spend any time at all? And are they making adequate progress to be 50% of the way finished by the time we get to December? I think I answered the question about the lockers at the high school. We're going to try to provide room for those other bags. One of the questions was meet the teacher events. I don't think I've answered that yet. The meet the teacher events, you'll get more information from the schools next week or in the coming days. But for the most part, they're going to be virtual, except for those people that are going to a campus for the first time. So in other words, 9th grade students, I believe the high school plans to have some kind of event where they're allowed to come on campus, and we'll try to stagger that trip to the campus. 10th, 11th, and 12th will have most likely a virtual meet the teacher event. As far as their schedules and getting their schedules, they will probably be mailed to them or emailed to them, but I can assure you we're going to get schedules to you. In middle school, we've got 6th and 7th grade coming to a new campus. So Ms. McCrary plans to do a meet the teacher event where they can be in person to some extent, but she is going to follow all the guidelines of social distancing and group size and those kinds of things. As she does that, 8th grade will have a virtual meet the teacher. At the upper elementary school, that means we would have 3rd grade having an in-person meet the teacher. 4th and 5th, we'll do a virtual meet the teacher. Most likely, that is the plan at this time, and that will be communicated to you soon. And at Ms. Jenkins' school, at the primary school, we are still debating that issue. We know we need to do it for pre-K and K, and we'll certainly plan to do that, but we may also, based on the age of those children, do it for 1st grade and 2nd grade. We are debating that. I will tell you, we're limiting visitors. So we are looking at whether or not, I know typically you love to do it, and I don't blame you. I've got 2 children too. They're grown, but I've got 2 children, and I know it. You want to walk them to that class that first day of school. So we are trying to look at something where we can do a meet the teacher event so that you get to do that, feel comfortable about where they're going, and then we're going to begin discouraging that almost immediately because we are concerned about keeping our, keeping people out of our buildings. So just know that that information's coming. Let me look through some other questions real quick. There was some question about the internet. If you don't have internet, we are looking for ways to provide that to students. We have been notified that there is a plan where the school can contract with the vendor like T-Mobile or Verizon, and then push that price out to the parents. Denton or Miss McCrary, I can't remember if it's $10 a month, or I think might be the monthly fee. But we're looking at maybe doing that. I mean, parents would have to pay that if we do that, but the vendor is willing to go through the school district. We pay it up front, and then we collect that fee from you. But we also have some hot spots, and to the degree we can, we're going to try to help our students be able to access the internet. But that may be one option that's available for our parents. Okay, probably the thing that I heard, and I didn't get a lot of pushback on this, is the temperature checks. I did hear from several parents that worried about us not doing that initial screening before they get to our schools or as they come into the schools. And we certainly have looked at that, and I will commit to those of you that are concerned about that that's not off the table. But right now, that's not part of our guidelines. We do believe we should focus, from my conversations with the Department of Community Health, that they said it was more important to focus on these prevention strategies, such as social distancing. And we think it could impede our ability to contact trace as we delay people getting to class, trying to check temperatures. It makes it very difficult on the bus if we're going to check it before they get on that bus. Certainly a bus driver could do it, but the Georgia Department of Education Pupil Transportation Department is not recommending it. If you think about it, that bus driver has got a lot of things going on at a bus stop. He's monitoring children behind him that are already on the bus. He or she is monitoring children that are outside the bus. They've got their stop sign out. They're monitoring the traffic. We are delaying traffic as all of this is going on. We could put somebody else on the bus to do that, but then we've got the problem if they have a fever, is the parent in the home? We've got to decide whether we can leave the child there or if we have to put them in an isolation seat. I promise you, if we put them in an isolation seat, everybody on that bus has probably got a cell phone, and everybody in the county will know we've got somebody with COVID-19 on that bus. And that may not be true, but that's what's probably going to get communicated. And we're very concerned about that because it may very well not be the case. It may be a false reading. We know that many times these temperature checks, you have to do it multiple times to make sure you've got an accurate reading. So there are just some problems with doing that, but we are not opposed to doing it. I am committed to keeping your children safe. And it becomes apparent that all of this is something that the whole community thinks we need to do to keep your child safe. We are prepared to do the work. It's not a matter of not wanting to do the work. We're just not sure it's going to be enough benefit. It certainly would help. I'm not saying it doesn't have its benefit, but there are a lot of complications with it. That as we work through this, there are a lot of complications. So the other thing I know you're concerned about is that sometimes parents send children to school sick. We know that happens, and it certainly does. But I can probably assure you, if they're willing to send a child to school sick, they're probably going to give them Tylenol or something to get past that screening now. So I don't know that we can just be sure that we're going to catch everything in that screening of a temperature check. The other thing I would say is we certainly hear every day about the asymptomatic people that are spreading this disease. So many times people have that virus and are spreading it, and they don't have any symptoms. So, but it is not off the table. You can continue to reach out to me. I respect that. I certainly know it would be wonderful to be able to do that, and we're not scared of doing the work of it. We're just not sure that the benefit that we get from that is going to be worth some of the complications we're going to get as a result of it, because we also want to protect our people that do have a fever, because it may be nothing. It may not be related to COVID-19. It may be. I can assure you that our teachers over the years have been able to recognize sick children in their classroom. So please know that our staff that's our business. I mean, we've been taking care of children for years, and we've got a lot of great teachers, and I promise you, I believe they're going to recognize if a child's not feeling well. And once we see that, I can assure you that child will be isolated, and we're going to begin to find out some questions from that child. We're going to begin to screen that child, and we're going to reach out to parent, and we're going to go through the process. So please know, by me saying it right now, our plan does not mean we're going to ignore the fact that we may notice somebody sick. And so we're going to still do those things we've always done. And I'm sure you know that our teachers have been doing that in the past. Let's see, that may be kind of all the things I can remember that came up. So I've got Jenny Gibo is here in the board office with me, and she's going to start looking through that chat. I know Miss McCrary texted me and said she was going to answer some of the chat questions, so she may have answered them, but I will see if there are any that I can answer. I'm not going to drag it out a long time with questions. I'm going to do my best to answer those I can quickly. And then I will promise you, if it's something I can answer, we'll get the answer to you. But I will say, please watch our website for information. Please look at the school, contact me, if we haven't addressed some of your concerns or needs.
Are upcoming pre-K able to do distance learning?
Okay, pre-K, there's a question about pre-K, and I have not addressed that at all. We did get guidelines this week from right from the start, I believe is I can't remember this. It used to be Office of School Readiness, or right from the start. We've just gotten our guidelines. So Ms. Jenkins is reviewing those now. And so we will see. I know we're willing to do a traditional school for pre-K if we're able to host. I mean, if we're able to safely bring children to school, we will have a pre-K program. Can we offer a virtual pre-K? We're going to look at what that looks like and see if we can. So I promise you we'll have information to those parents soon.
How will dual enrollment be impacted by the creative school schedule? South Georgia Tech starts instruction July 22nd.
I will have to follow up with the high school staff on if a class starts July 22nd, but if you've enrolled in a dual enrollment, I don't see any change in that. If you want to do dual enrollment, you can, whether you do that from home or if you do that at our school. I believe that will be fine and will work like it has worked in the past. We certainly are going to allow that and encourage it in many cases.
This is a question about middle school book bags, and I think Ms. McCrary already answered it.
Okay.
they're asking if there's any wiggle room for book bags being, not mesh. She said only mesh and clear was allowed.
We had a question about the book bags at middle school. Clear and mesh is what we are trying to stick to right now. But these are uncharted times and uncharted territory and unusual times. If you continue to have trouble finding that and you continue to have problems with your child making that work, like I say, we're going to try to have an option for you to buy from us, and I believe it will be reasonably priced. But if you continue, contact us, we're going to try to, we're going to work with you the best we can.
Due to the increasing number of cases in Taylor County, why can't schools start after Labor Day like the other counties in Georgia?
Okay, I have a question about starting after Labor Day. They said we've got increased cases, and we certainly are aware of that, and that there was some desire to start after Labor Day like other schools are. I am aware of Bibb County, and I think I heard of one more today. I cannot remember what county that was, but I'm not aware of any others. That certainly is an option, and if we get closer and closer to that, I mean, we have backup plans. I want to start Talbot, okay? I did have somebody tell, I'm trying to watch my phone, I'm not being rude, but I'm getting my staff is wonderful and they're getting me information. Talbot has decided to wait till after Labor Day. I am very concerned about our students have not been in school since March. That's one of my concerns. Another concern I have is we have students that have parents that have to go to work. If we can reasonably start August 3rd, I think we ought to and plan to. I think we may have to start with distance learning. But now I would not take starting after Labor Day off the table. If it becomes apparent that that's what we have to do, I'm certainly willing to do that. But I also want our kids to have 180 days of school. We don't have to have 100, we got flexibility, and that may be what those schools are doing. But I want to, if there's any way possible, I want to give your child 180 days of school. But if that becomes apparent we can't do that, we won't do it. I mean, I intend to keep the child safe if there's any way, to the degree we can. I'm going to do every reasonable step we can make. If it becomes apparent that this community wants us to, we certainly can cross that bridge. But I'd like for us to start as soon as possible.
If my child does an at-home learning, can she do agriculture for the physical part?
As far as any of our CTAE electives that Odyssey, so in this particular case, I think this student was considering doing at-home learning but wanted to be a part of our agriculture pathway. We will not be able to do that. Okay, I think we lost everybody for a minute. Somebody that's on the picture, give me a thumbs up. Are we good? Okay. We're not requiring face masks for the school. So you don't have to worry about face masks for the school. It's something we're going to encourage. If somebody is on the bus and has health concerns about wearing a face mask, it may mean that the bus is not the best avenue to get to school. But now, again, we're only want to make that a requirement on that bus because we cannot keep students separated. I understand your concern. We would probably, look at it on a case-by-case basis and certainly try to work with you. I think we always have tried to and will continue to do that. But we just feel like it's probably safer for those students. At least gives them some protection. It's probably certainly not complete protection. We don't think that's the answer for everything, the face mask. We just cannot provide social distancing and think it might help somewhat. So if you're referring to the bus, I would first probably ask, is it bus the best way to get your child to school? If it's the only way to get your child to school, then we may have to talk and see what we can work out. And I'm willing to have that conversation. But for right now, our guidelines are going to indicate that we mandate the mask on the bus only.
Are you gonna pass out food for distance learning, and if so, what if you don't eat specific food?
Right now, if you choose traditional if we're able to open school and have traditional learning, then the feeding will take place here, and we don't, at this point, don't have any intention of transporting food for those that do the at-home distance learning option. Now, if our traditional school gets sent home, then we will already be doing that, and we certainly would include all students, all children in Taylor County, like we've done over the summer and in the spring. So, and plus, I do not know what our numbers look like. I mean, when I get to July 24th and July 25th, and we know how many students are enrolled, that might look different to us then. Again, I'm gonna say it over and over, our plans can change, we're gonna remain flexible. But right now, we have no plans to do both. That if we're in school and we're providing food to students in school, we do not think we have the adequate staff to be able to deliver meals to those that choose to do at-home learning. But please know, if we do go home, if we're providing instruction at home, then we will.
How will students and teachers be able to practice social distancing in the classroom, and why can't face masks be required?
Okay, this is talking about in the classroom and social distancing, and I've got some, and we knew we would. We're gonna have some that won't face masks required, some that don't want to wear them. So that's why we have kind of taken the position we're going to encourage them. And on the bus, there's absolutely very little social distancing. In a classroom, we can get some space. I don't know that it will be 6 feet in every case. We are going to look at providing the teacher a face shield that they can wear so that their mouth can be seen. If a teacher wants to wear a mask, if they can be heard and understood by their class, we're going to let that teacher wear that mask. If you have got a child and you want your child to wear a mask, we're going to allow that. But we've got some that don't want them. We got some that have health reasons for not wanting them. So we just don't feel like at this time it's in the best interest of the school district as a whole to make it a mandated thing. But we certainly are going to encourage it, and we're certainly going to get as much distance between those desks as possible and offer our teachers some kind of separation if they want to get behind that separation or have a face shield. We've got, at this time, we probably have 50 face shields for teachers at this time, and we're trying to find more.
With virtual learning, the kids are teaching themselves.
With virtual learning, the question is, with virtual learning, are the students teaching themselves? There is an instruction component to Odyssey-ware. Now, I've not gone through one of the modules, but I believe there is instruction and videos, and I think it does provide instruction. It's not just, but the kid is on their own doing those things and has to be disciplined enough to do that work. But there is help on Odyssey-ware. And like I say, we will be monitoring that use and possibly, kind of contact you if your child's not doing as much as they should be. I am getting a note from the band director that says that there are fine arts electives on the Odyssey-ware, so a band student can finish their fine arts pathway. So if there's a band, somebody who's been in band or doing a music pathway, Odyssey-ware, we're going to get that list of electives out probably at the beginning of next week.
Will there be outside time for primary at all?
Will there be outside time for primary at all? To the degree we can do that by keeping classes separate, possibly. We might not the first few days, but I think you will see us move toward, as we get used to going to school in this environment, you will see us begin to try to do things to get those children an opportunity to do some form of exercise. So I'm not going to say definitely yet, but we certainly are looking at ways where we can get those kids, but probably not going to, and then that means those equipment, the playground equipment has to be disinfected, and we will do that too. That will be part of the plan if we get them out there.
Is the material that's going to be taught in the classroom the same material that they will be learning?
The course will be the same. I mean, in other words, if you're on full distance home learning and you're taking American Lit, I mean, I would think the overall content is the same. The delivery and all those things may be different, but we teach American Lit here. And so, you know, I would think those same standards are being taught. There are some classes that have end of course tests. We're not sure we're going to have testing this year, but the Odyssey is designed to cover those standards. And maybe getting a little help here. The Odyssey-ware is aligned to the state standards. So, I mean, you're going to get that kind of support on that platform, and it would have the same content, you know, just going to have a different instruction, different delivery of instruction.
For high school students, since they will not have lockers, will the requirement for binders be smaller? My child has 5 classes that require 2 to 3 inch binders. The mesh book bags will not hold these.
I think our staff needs to look at that and help you out. I do, and I think you'll see them do that. They will get supply lists out pretty soon, and they need to take, I don't know if I got any, I can't see all the names that are on, but the high school staff that I have, I mean, you certainly need to realize that they're not able to use those lockers, and we're gonna have to work with students. So I think you'll see our teachers do that.
This one is about temperature. I think you've already answered it. How are we social distancing and practicing safety when kids are practicing sports? You can't social distance playing football or basketball.
We are following GHSA guide. This is a question about sports, and I will tell you, we already have sports going on at school. We've got practice. They've been practicing football. That softball's going. I think we may have band camp going. So we are following the GHSA guidelines for those things, and they've been gradually permitting more and more activities. So we started with smaller groups, and as we've adjusted to those smaller groups, they've allowed us to add more children. At first, they weren't allowed to touch the ball, the basketball, or the football, but now they're able to do that. Just gradually, they've increased that, but they are following all those guidelines, and we are currently doing that. And I agree that there is certainly no social distancing at this point, probably in some of those groups. But that's being allowed, and you know, we want, if we can play football, we want our kids to be able to do that and participate in that.
If we can be alert, are we following CDC guidelines?
We are not following them in that we can't get, they're not mandates, they're recommendations. If I had a bigger room, I'd make it bigger. It's not a matter of not wanting to, we just don't have the space. And they're not mandates, but the CDC guidelines that we can reasonably follow and have a way of following, we're gonna follow. And other than that, we're gonna do the most we can do to be as close to those as we can.
We just moved to the area. How can I register my kids?
All right, how can I just move to the area? How can I register my kids? We do have an online enrollment process now, but I may have to give you my email address and let me get someone to contact you, or if somebody wants to give me a text message real quick. But I know that we use Infinite Campus, and that I believe you can enroll now online with Infinite Campus. I think we were working towards that. I don't think we have, I mean, maybe you can access it through the website, but let me see if somebody chimes in. You certainly can contact the school or contact, here's somebody, let's see. Okay, the online registration isn't ready yet, but you can contact Connie Brown or LaTanja Turner, and by email, and that is, let's see. You contact them until we get the online registration ready. Connie Brown is brown.connie@taylorboe.org. And if you go to our website, I think you can find those email addresses. LaTanja Turner is turner.latanja@taylorboe.org, or you can contact the school based on the age of the child, and they should be able to help you also. But we are trying to get the online registration to help with that and to keep people from having to come to the office.
Since each 6-12 student will have a Chromebook, this means there will be less paper and print resources that they can create virus spread. Is that correct?
Say that to me again now.
Since each student 6-12 will have a Chromebook, this means there will be less paper and print resources that can create virus spread.
The Chromebooks will give us an opportunity to hopefully have less paper and less printed material. And they will be able to keep their own, and they're not sharing them, which will help with the spread of the virus. So that is one of the positives, certainly, from having those Chromebooks. And that may be some of the answer with the notebooks. If we got Chromebooks, we may be able to take notes if your child is able to do that. And, you could certainly encourage them to take notes on the Chromebook.
This is about Wi-Fi. Dooley and Crawford received a grant so that all of their students got free Wi-Fi through towers and hotspots that can be placed throughout their county.
We are looking for avenues to provide Wi-Fi. This is a question about, I think, that another district was able to get and provide hotspots and things for all their students. We have grant funds too, and we've applied for a grant we hadn't heard from. And if we get it, I think it's going to drastically improve our delivery of distance learning if we have to do it. If our teachers have to provide distance learning, we think that if we get this grant, it's going to provide those interactive panels, it's going to provide Zoom subscriptions. That was a path we went with that particular grant. We don't know that we'll get it, but we certainly are hopeful. It will certainly help in situations like these. We do have CARES Recovery Act funding that the federal government gave us, but we also, many of you have heard, have received cuts in the state funding. We're going to do some budget meetings in the near future. If you're interested, and I won't bore you with the details of all of that, but we will have budget meetings that we're going to talk through some of that information soon if you want to hear about that. And we're going to need all of that federal money to help offset the state cuts that we received this year. So, schools do make different choices, not saying we've made all, sometimes we get it right, and sometimes maybe, the different ways to look at different things, but we don't currently have any funding to do that with. But we are certainly willing to work with kids, and we do have some hotspots available, and we'll try to help out as much as possible.
Will the distance learning students in grade 6 through 12 also be assigned a Chromebook, or is it just because they're at school?
We have enough devices for that, so if that's needed if a student who chooses full distance learning at home, they need a device, I am willing for them to be assigned a device. They'll have to sign an agreement, but yes.
Will students who choose distance learning be prepared to re-enter the classroom during the second semester if they choose, if they have only been using the Odyssey?
Well, if somebody's gone the first semester on Odysseyware and they're coming back to our campus the second semester, I think they're just worried about that transition. We'll take that grade, and certainly the teacher that receives those students, we're going to have to be mindful that they were not there the first semester, and I believe you can count on our teachers to make sure that that they do that, that they're okay and they make that transition. It will be a little bit of a transition, but I believe our teachers can handle that transition and will handle it well.
Okay, so what about shop class with the sharing of tools? I guess
if we're on campus doing traditional learning and you're in auto shop, he's going to have to do the best he can to not share equipment and disinfect equipment. Again, it'll be that classroom teacher, and we're going to do everything in our power. I expect you'll see us come in. We're doing a lot of book learning. That's not going to be what the kids want to do when they go into shop class. But my guess is he's going to have to start out slow. Let's see how things go. And so there may be a lot of sitting at desk and taking note and looking at different things. If they're hands-on activities, he's going to have to try to keep that distance. Kids, I think at the high school level, we intend for kids to have wipes and help us disinfect things, disinfect desks. There's nothing that says that we can't, when students go into the classroom, we can provide wipes for them to help us disinfect that before as they're sitting down. So the same would be true for those tools. We will have hand sanitizer in the classrooms. We're going to have disinfectant spray in the classrooms. We plan to have wipes in the classroom. And we plan to utilize high school students to help us keep them safe.
Is it possible to create clear partitions for each student at their desk?
They're asking, is it possible to create clear partitions for each student at their desk? That is something we have looked at. I don't know that we could find it. If we could find it, I don't know what it would cost us. But I've certainly considered it. And I don't know that I'd have a problem if a parent sent one that they wanted their child to use. So if you have something at home that would work and you want your child to use that, we will mark it and allow them to use that. And if we can create something or find something, especially in those real tight, I have thought about in those rooms that are the smallest, that we really would look to see if there's something we could do to help have some barrier there between the desks. So we're open for that. I think it's going to get harder and harder to find that. But we are open to that, but may not be able to do it in every case, but we'll look to do it where we can.
And there's several questions about, is it possible to have the staff check the temperature of students before they enter the building?
It is possible they're asking, is it possible to have the staff take the temperature before they enter the building? And it is possible. And we're willing to do it. But the problem is we probably got, well, depending on how many choose online learning now. I mean, we're going to know July 24th. I don't know how many students we'll have actually coming to school. But that gets problematic because we're going to stop them outside. We got people that come by car. We got car drivers. We got bus riders. And we got, especially at the high school and middle school, there are multiple entrances. So we would have to position people at all the entrances. But as we stop kids to get that information, we're causing kids to congregate. And that's the concern. And then when we add inclement weather into the picture, then we're causing them to stand outside and we may have bad weather. I'll also caution you to think about too, it hadn't been that many years we've been doing things like locking doors and getting them in the building and being under lock and key at all times. It scares us to leave children lined up for any length of time, delaying that entry into our buildings a little bit. But the answer is yes, we can do it. Would there be some benefit of that? Yes, we might catch somebody with a temperature before they got in our building, and that would be beneficial. But I just would remind you, I understand your concern, but there are some downsides to doing that we are going to slow that entry into our building, and we are going to back students up as we do that. And our thinking was that if we can get them quickly out of the car and into that first period class, we may have limited exposure to kids in general, even kids that don't have temperature. You've sort of limited. Now on the bus, they hadn't been limited, but we've limited their opportunity in a hallway or even outside where we've had them lined up. And we can social distance them outside, and outside, they're not as likely to get it. But what happens with this virus, from at least the information I'm sure you've seen, that it's your exposure for an extended amount of time. And so we're just trying to limit that amount of time. We're delaying children from getting to that classroom. So it's still a possibility. I'm not throwing that out as an option. I can tell you that we're still looking for infrared thermometers. We're still buying those infrared thermometers. So we have not completely thrown out the idea of checking temperature now. We have got probably 30 infrared thermometers at this point in time. We are looking for more. So it is within the realm of possibility that every classroom teacher will have one of those thermometers before we start school. But it's just, there are a lot of issues with trying to do that. So just bear with us, keep sending me, if that's a concern for you, I want you to email me, call me, discuss it with me. I want to hear from you. I hear you. I know it's a concern, But please know there's some other sides to that as well, and think about those too.
If my child's teacher has the virus, will the entire class be quarantined or tested?
If my child teacher has the virus, will the entire class be tested or quarantined? I would think that we're going to look, well, first of all, we're going to communicate that to you. You will know that if your child's been in that class with that. We're going to look to the health department. We're going to communicate that. We probably are going to quarantine that class for a certain amount of time and watch and allow the parents to watch for symptoms. But it might not be everybody in the classroom. If that teacher hasn't been if the teacher's constantly in the front of the classroom, it might be just those that were in the closest proximity. But we may very well send home those students for a few days to see and watch for symptoms, that kind of thing. We may not. I will seek, and the school administrators will seek the advice of our public health department and our local health officials. We will seek medical guidance and not make those decisions absent that. But we will communicate. Parents will know when we have a positive case.
Can parents choose to provide K-2 students with their own Chromebooks?
Can parents choose to provide students with their own Chromebooks, K through 2? The only thing I would say about that, and I don't really have a problem with them bringing the device. I'm not sure how much they use them, K2. I think we're going to try to introduce them and make them use them some in case we have to go to distance learning. My hope is that we're able to start August 3rd and that we can, hold on I'm sorry. I'm hoping that we can start August 3rd and that you'll see some of these teachers begin to try to introduce those Chromebooks to those students, even the young ones, in case we have to do distance learning again, so they'll become familiar with them. But on a general rule, I don't know how often a K through 2 student's going to use that device, but certainly if it looks like we're constantly using those devices, we will certainly look at allowing parents to send those with their students. And I hope I can report at some point that we have enough for everybody, because we're certainly trying.
In regards to meet the teacher, can we please have them after 5 so that parents are able to get off work?
Yeah, as far as meet the teacher, can we have them after 5 so parents can get off of work? I will talk to the administrators before we put any information out about that. I think a lot of the virtual ideas will be something that's recorded so they can watch it anytime, whenever it's convenient. But if it's actually a student that we're going to allow to come on campus, I will talk to the administrators. I'm not sure about times at this point, but certainly that is something we ought to take into consideration.
If the child does homeschooling, are they allowed to participate in sports and bands?
Okay, I've got 2 things that I'm not prepared to answer tonight. I got 2 things that probably are going to come up. One of them hasn't come up, the other one just came up. If your student chooses to do the full distance at home learning, can they participate in sports and extracurricular activities? And I don't want to answer that tonight because I want a little more time to reflect on that and to talk to some other people, some other stakeholders that are involved in this decision. I will say we care about your kid. Even if you're doing the full distance learning at home, you're our student. So, I mean, we're going to take this very, very seriously and get back with you. We will give you an answer before you have to make that decision, though. So you'll have an answer before July 24th, probably next week. But there is some concern about the only reason we're offering the full distance learning at home, the only reason we're doing that is because we know we got parents that are concerned about COVID-19. And so the idea of that, and see, somebody's even already said there's no way they're social distancing when they're practicing football, and there is no way to do that. And so it is a little bit contradictory to say I don't want my child to come to school and be at school, but I am willing for them to play football. And in football, you're not only around those students from Taylor County that are not social distance, you're also going to be around the other teams that they play from other counties. So, certainly that is true. But that doesn't mean that's the answer, okay? There are other things that are not contact like that. We've got an esports team, we got beta club, we got key club, we got band. Some sports are worse than others as far as the contact. So give us a little more time to work through that issue. Some schools have already weighed in on that. You're probably beginning to see that from some schools. But we care about our students, and we will get that information to you as soon as possible. The second question that has not come up, I don't think, tonight, but I have heard through email that I hadn't mentioned yet, is somebody is concerned, some people are concerned about, and I think some schools have ruled differently on this, is if I'm doing full distance learning at home, am I still eligible for honors? Like, and that is coming, so somebody did put that in. Am I still eligible like for valedictorian, salutatorian, or the honors program? Because I've seen one district that's saying no. At least one district said no. I want a little more time to reflect on that and to talk to some additional stakeholders. And once that decision is decided, we'll communicate that to you. And I know we will do that before you have to make your decision for distance learning, before July 24th, and hopefully as early as the beginning of next week.
Will the high schoolers be able to park and get a parking pass and have the teachers set out the school list yet?
There's a question about a parking pass for the students that drive vehicles, and yes, we still plan to allow students to drive vehicles, so we will be issuing parking passes. And then the supply list, I don't think they're out yet, but I would think they're coming real soon. And they will probably be issued electronically. And we plan to put it in the newspaper as well.
This person just made a statement that the nurse were told right now to assume a fever is COVID-19 and to approve otherwise, so temperature check are must.
Okay. We heard from somebody that says they are a nurse. They say COVID-19, that they assume a fever is COVID-19, and they believe temperature checks are a must. I will tell you, if we know a child has a temperature, we're going to treat it as if any symptoms, any child is sick, we are going to treat them as if they've got COVID-19. So make no mistake about that. Once we know a child has a fever, we are going to isolate them. There is going to be a room at each school. They'll be isolated. The parent will be contacted. We will treat it like that. The question is the logistics of doing that and exposing other children to asymptomatic children that might have it, and just working through those issues. But I would certainly be glad for this parent to contact me, be glad to meet with them, talk to them. Certainly want to hear from the medical professionals.
This is a question about out-of-county tuition, and Ms. McCrary answered it on down in the chat. She also answered back to the binder and that question. She also said teachers will relax the requirements for binders, and since we'll be integrating more work on Chromebooks, there will be less paper anyway.
There is, Ms. McCrary has answered, and she's saying that with the binders, you're not going to have those big, they're going to relax those big binders that they've been requiring for sure. And what was the other? Oh, the tuition, and I'm not sure how she answered that, but I've had a couple of questions about out-of-county tuition. We still plan to charge out-of-county tuition regardless of the option you choose, because we are providing that, and it's not our teachers providing that instruction, but we are providing the format that's being used. Okay, when and where. I'm sorry. Well, I have had some questions about whether it'd be due if you chose the homeschool, but when and where, and that the board office, and before the first day of school.
Another one about participating sports. If we're using online instruction during the fall, will our student be allowed to participate in spring sports?
Okay, if a student is doing fall distance learning but comes back to school and participates in traditional school in the spring, can they participate in spring sports? And that's definitely yes. And it's not totally ruled out that they can't participate by doing, we haven't ruled that out yet. But definitely if they're in school, they can participate.
And this is another out-of-county. They're asking, can they mail the payment to the board office?
Yes. There's a question about out-of-county tuition. Can you mail the payment to the board office? Yes. It's P.O. Box 1930, Butler 31006, P.O. Box 1930.
Right, and then the person who was new and wanting to enroll their children, somebody posted those email addresses.
Okay, great, great.
Now this person says, what is the deadline for deciding on at-home learning? I know you said that.
The deadline for at-home learning is July 24th. And then we'll have another deadline during the first semester for the second semester. But for this first semester, it will be July 24th.
This one is asking, can there be technology set up to get announcements out to parents other than Facebook, because everyone is not on Facebook?
We are using, I hope we're using our website. I don't know if you don't have, they're saying they're not having access to Facebook, so they're not getting all the information. I hope, and for the administrators and staff that are on the Zoom call, we need to be utilizing our website too. And this new website that we have is supposed to post it to the websites and to Facebook so that you could see it on the website. We're also keeping the newspaper. It's just a little delayed with the newspaper, but we are staying in contact with the Taylor County News to provide information. Also, I think our contact email addresses are out there on the website. If there's something specific that's needed, you are welcome to, contact me or somebody on the staff to try to get that information. So we'll do our best to communicate.
Those people wanting the address, Ms. Turner put it out there for them to mail in their tuition.
Okay.
And Ms. McCrary, they were asking about signing up for distance learning. She said a link to the registration will be on the full website by the 13th.
That's correct. Yeah, by the 13th, we're going to have an enrollment form if you want to do the full distance learning.
And this person, which someone might have already answered on down, is Odyssey as rigorous as the classroom curriculum, or will the distance learning students be academically behind?
I believe the Odyssey Wear is aligned with the standards. I believe it, is a good product. We believe it will certainly challenge your student. Again, if you're doing that, the student is required to do that on their own, and so it takes a lot of discipline sometimes to do that. But I believe if the student is actively engaged in that program, then yes, I believe it's a good product and will be a good form to educate your child. We have confidence, have used that product for years and have confidence in it.
This person asked, is Odyssey Wear free? And Ms. Turner answered, it is free for students in Taylor County that are residents of Taylor County. Out-of-county students choosing this option will still be considered out-of-county, and fees assessed as if they were participating in the traditional format.
Right. There was a question about, is the Odyssey Wear free? It is free to our students, except that she's right. I think Ms. Turner put that we are still charging the out-of-county tuition. So if you're out-of-county student, you're paying the out-of-county tuition, just as you would if you were doing traditional. It is not free to the district. Odyssey Wear is not a free program. We are having to purchase that, but it is free to the students.
And then they were wanting to know would it be additional money, and Ms. Turner said no, it's just your regular.
Yeah, right. There's no additional charge for students that do that. It's just they're going to pay what they normally would if they're out-of-county students.
Okay. What about kids that have to have speech?
We will, if you have and I guess I think you would have an IEP with the speech. I think you would have an IEP with that speech, possibly. I think that's something that the SPED director and we'll have to have a meeting on. And if you choose full distance learning and your child has to have speech services, it's very likely that child, and I may be having some help here, may have to come to school at some point in time. Well, we do have, that's right, I had forgotten that. We do have the online services from the speech path. So there is already a format to deliver that through an electronic format. So we do have a way to deliver those services through that format. So I think we'll be fine with speech, but we certainly will get with those students and work out a plan.
What are the requirements to be an honor graduate?
What are the requirements to be an honor graduate? They're going to be what they always are. I think in the handbook, you would have seen that in the past. I think it's 90 and above to be an honor graduate. And I don't think we've had any change in that.
How long is a semester?
It will be 90 days, basically, if we get to come full time. And
Ms. McCreary answered it, ends on December 18th.
yeah, it ends on December 18th.
And I know that's it as far as questions go, but somebody did put a link up to the Taylor County website in case someone was looking for the new people.
Okay, I think we've posted the website. Somebody put that in the chat. I'd like to thank you for your patience. We've kind of gone through most of the chats. I want to encourage you to continue to reach out to me. I am very receptive. We know we don't have all the answers. We know we're going to have to make adjustments as we move forward. I can just promise you we're not going to lose sight of, a safe learning environment for our students, quality instruction, and even social and emotional support. Those are things we intend to provide our students, and we know they're things that our students need. I appreciate your confidence in us, and I appreciate your support. We know this is going to be an awkward year and a hard year, a different year, but I believe we can make it a good year, and I believe with a collaborative effort. I appreciate the participation tonight. Appreciate the comments. We're going to take that into advisement, and if we need to modify our plans, we certainly will. And I believe through the collaborative effort of the staff of the Taylor County School System, our parents, and our community stakeholders, that we're going to have a successful year and we can make this a good experience for our students. Thank you very much for participating tonight.